Hello and welcome. Let's get this party started. So I have the privilege of welcoming Tony Beltramelli today, and he is the head of product and AI at Miro. So previously, Tony was the co-founder and the CEO of Wizard, the world's first AI-powered product design tool, which was acquired by Miro earlier this year. So he's just in his first few months at Miro after building his company. So for his work on applied deep learning and AI, Tony has actually been recognized as one of Forbes 30 under 30 in 2019. So please welcome Tony.
How's it going, everyone? So awkward to hear an intro about yourself, but thanks. Pleasure to be here. How's the energy this morning? Coffee? US election hangover? Too soon? All right, too soon. All right, so we're going to talk today, of course, about something you have never heard about, AI, and how we think AI can help accelerate innovation across software company with a bias on consumer tech, given that this is kind of like the place where we have most of our customers today at Miro. I've always told to present myself as well. I'm a guitar nerd, which my wife, kids, and neighbors absolutely love. I'm a design lover. I strongly believe that great software, great code is no longer enough. You need to have great, beautiful, easy-to-use software to win the world. And I've been an AI builder before AI was cool, as per my investors' quote. And so, as mentioned briefly, 7 years ago, I built a company called Wizard, which was at the time the first AI-powered design tool. And our goal was to help product teams and product managers to design product faster. I love Figma, but Figma is really hard to use. And we felt like there's got to be a better way to help everybody with an open, inclusive, collaborative platform to co-create prototype wireframes before moving on to do heavy lifting work in Figma. And this vision of helping more people create product is what motivated us to join Miro. So we joined Miro early this year to empower teams to create the next big things together. And we love Miro's ambition to really level the playing field and enable the full team to collaborate in one unified platform. That's the real reason I joined Miro. No one knew how to pronounce our company name. UI Zard, UI Lizard, I've heard it all. So now I can say I work at Miro, which is a lot more practical. But anyway, before we talk about AI and how we think AI can transform innovation, I want to talk about something a bit less sexy, but that we think matter, which is processes. And how we, Miro, learn to leverage processes to enable innovation within our product and also our customer. And this is kind of like the oversimplification of what it looks like when you create products. You are discovering what it is that you build. Discovering is, the diamond, the flip diamond, where you try to just branch out and go crazy and wild. Okay, what problems are there that we're trying to solve? And once you discover what problem you want to solve, you define them. You kind of constrain and regroup on what exactly this solution could look like. And then you deliver, which is typically one of the most messy part, where engineering coming, design coming, we try to build whatever we've defined as a solution and bring it to market. And typically where we lose momentum, so that's a study we ran with, I think, over 2,000 customers a few years ago. Most customers claim that the most messy part of their process and where they lose the most momentum is at the discovery phase. It takes way too long to get consensus on what to build, and then defining this into a comprehensive set of solutions is always taking longer. And the thing that we also discovered, and we're quite mind-blown about, is the fact that processes are, in the heads of our customers, one of the main blockers that hinder fast-paced innovation. You can see on the slide here, only 41% of leaders think that their processes and ways of working encourage their pace of innovation. And only 31% of the information workers claim that the processes is adequate to enable their company to innovate fast. So as much as I hate processes, it turns out that they matter a little bit. So at Miro, we try to just see, okay, how do we innovate ourselves so we can actually help our customers innovate faster as well? And we try to make a lot of iteration. We failed, we learn, and this is kind of like a really rough, high level of what we do and what we found to work great for us and for customers that have been trying our methods. The first thing is that we try to have a central place for every Mironeer, that's how we call our colleagues, Mironeers, to follow the thread of what we're trying to build. One space where everything lives, the design files, the code artifacts, the ideation platform, the KPIs, having it all in one place turns out, as simple as it is, already helping a lot. And we also established milestone across that journey of discover, define, deliver to enable us to have a pace, a cadence on top of which we live. We call this like the heartbeat of innovation. We have the kickoff, which is, we'll kind of talk about it a little bit after, which is like the moment where we kick things off. And this moment really matters. Solution review, pre-launch review, and of course always a post-launch review when we see what worked, what didn't work, what can we do better next time. So the project kickoff is a place where we define clearly, as early as possible, what success look like, what problems are we trying to solve, and the RACI. We define exactly who's responsible, who's accountable, who's consulted, and who's informed. And just putting names on a board or on a document at this stage really helps people feel, okay, that's me to own this. That's me, they need to drive this to completion. And typically, we ask people to come with almost no preparation. It's like, hey, this is a problem to solve. What comes to your mind as to how we can solve this? We align on a North Star as early as possible, and we try to just use this to collect feedback on, okay, is it the right metrics to define success? Is it the right OKR to look at if we are to be successful with this new initiative? We set a date for a date. Sounds pretty obvious, but I know some of you have heard this. I think it's called the Parkinson law, which means that work will always fill the amount of time that's given to it. Meaning that if you give people a deadline, all the work will happen, but typically on the last moment before the deadline. So what we do is that because we have this stage process, we put deadline at every single stage to make sure that we are not behind and we can actually keep people accountable to the timeline. We encourage team to embrace bad version. So what we call bad version is that it doesn't matter if it's not polished. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect. Share it with your coworker, collect feedback, and move forward. And I've been a victim of this myself. You want to polish absolutely everything before showing it to your fellow colleagues, but it's honestly a waste of time for everybody at the end of the day because typically what you show is not the final solution. You want to collect feedback and iterate. And so embracing bad version and making this like a company culture, we found to be extremely valuable to make sure that we innovate and are not like embarrassing ourselves because things are not perfectly finalized. And then we celebrate failure. So we have two concepts at Miro. One is called Fails Night, and the other one is called the Fuck Up of the Week. And what this meant to be is like, okay, if we had to move fast, we are going to make mistakes. But if mistakes are not celebrated, people will feel ashamed of their mistakes, and they will be reluctant to move as fast next time around. So we celebrate the failure, and of course, this is a culture that needs to come from leadership, right? The CEO and everybody need to also say, hey, I messed up, I did this because we're trying to move fast. Just to embrace this culture of learning. Some days you win, some days you learn. Failure is part of learning, and we think this is critical. I put this, one of my favorite way to illustrate this on the right, which is like, you have three teams, hypothetical team. The yellow team is, if you can read yellow and white, they ship every 3 weeks, and they fail 20% of the time. The team in blue ships every week and fail 30% of the time. And the red team ship every 3 weeks and never fail, which doesn't exist, right? You will always fail at some point. The point here is that you can see the team that fail often but ship more often typically outpace the other teams. And that's kind of like, something that Y Combinator in Silicon Valley has been really good at, which is like, go fast and break stuff, which is like, hey, failure happened, but let's just make sure we iterate at the right velocity. Of course, this doesn't apply to very sensitive domain if you work within pharmaceutical, defense, and so on. Obviously, you don't want to fail too much and too often. But when you build consumer tech, there is honestly very few good reasons not to fail at a high velocity to learn. And those ways of working is, again, how we learn to innovate better ourselves, so we could infuse this into the Miro product, the innovation workspace, so we can help other people innovate as well, using the same ways of working that are embedded within product capabilities. And I'm sure some of you might still think of Miro as the digital whiteboard. Well, it turns out there is way more going on. And that leads us to AI. Why AI belongs to a workflow? So this is the expectation we all have. We have an idea, and somehow we can turn this idea into a final product really quickly. The thing is, typically innovation happens by people creating artifacts in order to communicate their ideas to other people that then iterate with you on those artifacts. And the creation of artifacts basically help us to see, understand, shape what exactly we're trying to build. If we take 5 steps back, the way we create artifacts today, I think is pretty broken. How many of you love using a keyboard and a mouse or a trackpad? It kind of sucks. This technology has been around for like hundreds of years, and it see almost no change, right? You could say, okay, if it didn't change for hundreds of years, it's because it's a perfect modality, or it's because we don't have anything better. The point is that we are meant to interface with this clunky hardware and the software interface in order to create artifacts. And the current reality is that we spend our entire days clicking, typing, just to manifest pixel on a screen. And I think we are using software interfaces by necessity, not by choice. And as a way to illustrate this, how many of you love to go back to pen, paper, whiteboard once in a while to take a break from software and think more clearly? There's something magical about this, I think. And to me, this is like the proof point that the way we interact with software today is definitely far from ideal, if we still feel the need to use pen and paper. So the reality is even more convoluted, right? We use hardware interface, physical medium, and then a vast different suite of software, which I all designed slightly differently to create artifacts. That's great, right? So currently we are forced to adapt to the way software is designed, and software doesn't really adapt to the way we want to work as people, as teams, as businesses. And I think this is where AI can really have a huge card to play. I think AI can really be the kind of like interface until we have, mind-reading interface or whatever fancy technology we're going to have in the next 5 years to convert the artifact from the physical medium, convert our intent that we can type through a keyboard into artifacts much more efficiently. Here I will show you a few examples of how this looks like today in Miro. So, of course, one caveat is that we've seen that the way AI today can help the most is at the discovery phase, which is typically the most messy of it all. But of course, as AI mature every single week, I think we're going to be able to also, of course, affect and improve the process at the definition phase and delivery phase as well. But for example, you should be able to just take a bunch of stickies and generate a product brief. That should be a given. Why do you have to create this by hand? You should be able to get the first draft using AI and then polish it to make it exactly the way you want it with your team in a matter of minutes. And you should be able to take those stickies and the PRD and generate a prototype. Why do you need to wait 2 weeks to get just a rough, ugly wireframe? That should take, honestly, a few minutes, a few hours at most. And this is where AI can, in our eyes, really help the process. This is not meant to be like, hey, we're done, we call it a day, we can ship the product. It's like, if you can visualize your ID faster, you can see the shortcoming of that ID faster and therefore iterate better and get to a better solution at the end of the day. And that's what we believe AI is going to be amazing at and is already great, helping customers. If you prefer to brainstorm on a whiteboard, you should be able to take a picture of that whiteboard, turn it into a digital form so you can use it further into your process. How many of you have been like retyping, stickies and whiteboard notes? Yeah, right? I love it. And then you could also, some people prefer to sketch IDs on paper, which is fine. You should be able to take those artifacts, turn it into digital form automatically, and then build on top of. And that's why we believe AI will transform the way we innovate. So a few summary. AI can facilitate collaboration, right? It levels out the playing field. All of a sudden, you don't need to be an expert in design or engineering or marketing to be able to create artifacts. It doesn't mean you will replace your colleagues, of course not, but it will help you as a product manager to communicate much better with your team. And you can also do more hands-on work as a PM, as a business leader. And you can simplify communication, right? A picture is worth 1,000 words, and I believe that a visual artifact is worth 1,000 meetings. If you can communicate better with your team, everybody wins. The designer is less frustrated, he can focus on more work because you know exactly what you want to do. The marketing teams can also focus on the core problem to solve. AI can streamline the workflow, as we've seen before, if you can seamlessly transform across formats. All of a sudden you have software that adapt to the way you want to work, rather than forcing you to adapt to the way software was designed. And finally, AI will accelerate innovation. In many, many different areas, the fact that LLM hallucinate is a big problem. But when you work with creativity, I think AI hallucinations are not a bug, it's actually a feature. Because sometimes you have, I don't know if some of you have experienced this with ChatGPT or other tools, sometimes it hallucinates and it's like, oh, that's weird, but that's interesting. I can use this weird output as a way to inspire myself and see outside of the box. So yeah, I think AI is going to transform innovation. It's already happening today, and we're going to see the world is going to be really crazy in the next few years, that's for sure. Thank you, everybody.
Woohoo, awesome, excellent. So we have time for a few questions. We have microphones on the side. We also have a microphone here that I can throw out to the audience. And to kick us off, I'm going to ask you a question to get started, which is, you'd show us a lot of ways where you can use AI in order to like generate ideas at the start and the conceptual phase of a project. Could you give us an example of how you did that for something recently? For example, potentially giving this talk, or another thing that you've worked on?
Yeah, so the technology that we brought to Miro is this like technology to generate UIs for websites, mobile app, and so on. And when we actually launched and announced our innovation workspace at Canvas 24 a few weeks ago, we actually used the technology to generate like I think we generated 10 different layouts for a landing page, as a way to kickstart the process and get much better to the final version. So we do this as well. We have teams using like our own AI to generate PRDs whenever we do project discovery. So we also want to dog food our tech to make sure that it's actually create value.
Exactly. Cool. Let's take a question from the audience. Who wants to give it a shot? Am I seeing somebody? Yes. Oh, we have one from the front here.
I love this throwable microphone.
Whoa.
Hi, I have a question, and it is basically also about your role at Miro as head of AI. How do you enable other teams, especially in the text, you talked about product or also design, marketing, to use AI and to go basically this way and basically enable them to use these kind of processes?
Great question. So we are also like customers of AI tools that have been vetted for our organization. So everybody at Miro has access to a handful of AI tools beyond the Miro product. And so that means that the entire team get access to this suite of tools to help them accelerate the workflow. So of course we dog food our own tech, so we use our own technology, and then we supplement it with other kind of like vertical specific tools. Like Glean is one of them that we absolutely love at Miro. Glean is this AI tool, LLM, on top of which you can give your business knowledge. So it have context on the business, context of your KPI, OKR, and you can leverage this to just make more informed kind of like decision using AI. So this plus Miro is what we use all across the organization.
Nice, thank you.
I have a question. If you were talking about failing fast.
Yeah.
Can you see me?
I can see you.
Okay. Now, if you speed up innovation and you have much more output, how do you know that you fail fast? Because sometimes it takes time to know that you failed. If you run A/B tests, for example, like how do you speed up that part?
Good point. So, like this is where we rely on well-tested methodology. I'm a big fan of the growth hacking book by Sean Ellis, where if you define KPIs that you want to use to define failure or success, you can use this as a way to just measure whether you consider this a failure or whether you want to maybe let things run a little bit longer. And so using back of the envelope statistics, you can also know, okay, based on this feature, we need to wait 2 more weeks to know whether it's a failure or a success. So of course, the speed and the cadence at which you consider a failure is highly dependent on what you want to test. Some features take weeks. Some features might take a quarter to validate whether you're failing or not.
Okay, I see the microphone moving along the way. Okay, perfect.
It's a short one. Hey Tony, really good talk. What is the North Star metric for your measuring the success of AI? Is it like more users? Is it better engagement for already existing users? Is it, expanding AI into different funnels? So just want to understand, like, how do you know that yes, we have embedded AI and it's working well for us at the end of the day? Because you can have AI, but how do you know that this is the path which we want to, move towards?
Yeah, AI is funny because we test a lot of different things, right? Like, and I will just take also some experience from building Wizard for the past 7 years, where it was like an AI first product. What we found works the best to measure whether an AI first capability create value is literally to ask people. And what we found to work well is literally like at the end of an AI workflow, ask people for a thumb up or thumb down. So of course, this doesn't replace speaking with people directly, but this we found was a really great way to quantify over the whole user base whether a feature is actually used because people are just curious to try it out, or whether it's used over and over again because it actually create value. So merging the thumb up, thumb down rating plus recurrent active users of that feature, and of course supplementing this with direct interview with customers. So, but honestly, like it's very similar to the way you would do it with other features. So I don't think AI is vastly different in this case, apart from the voting mechanism. We also tried the 5-star mechanism. Didn't work for us, but the thumb up, thumb down was better.
I think there was a question very close. Yes.
Thank you, Tilke, and hi, Tony. So full disclosure, I'm an avid Miro user, but I'm also a Figma nerd. So, and speaking of rollbacks, Figma had one a while ago with their Figma AI.
Yep.
And I'm curious, how do you see it with generative AI building prototypes and potentially, or at least wireframes as you call them, but they looked pretty high fidelity to me, that all designs start to look the same?
Good point. So I will speak on behalf of my own name and not Miro and Wizard, but I think Figma is in a different situation because they are serving professional designers. And if you create something that feel like you replace the very job of these people, you have a problem. Miro is not a design tool and never will be. It's a place for teams to explore ID, iterate, and then design. And I think the fact that we are not claiming and never going to claim to be a design tool give us the permission to just say, hey, you can use Miro to brainstorm, create ID, but this is not meant to be like a final product, right? And so the fact that perhaps design are going to look slightly similar mean that, okay, it's like high fidelity wireframing, but ultimately the final result will absolutely have to be polished by subject matter experts, which are designers that live in Figma. So I think because of the place we create value, it just gives us a different perception of what AI should do for our customers. And I think Figma probably realized the same thing because they rebranded the AI features first draft because they want to make sure people understand, hey, this is not like going to replace you, whatever. I don't think AI will replace any of us anytime soon, to be honest. It's like first draft, helping you think and helping you explore more ideas. So that's where I would probably, see the distinction.
Thank you.
Okay, love the discussion. Let's keep it going. Do we have another hand? Yes, there's a hand in the front here, and where was it again? Yes.
So I'm wondering, because if you can create a lot of ideas and a lot of proposals quickly, this would lead sooner or later to content explosion. So I'm wondering, did you experience already this, and what was your reaction?
Well, there's definitely like truth to the choice overload. If you have a lot of choices in front of you, it's kind of hard to make a pick. And this is where we always try to bring the voice of the customer. And the way we use prototyping is a way to just, instead of showing prospective customer or doing user research with 1 or 2 options, we can all of a sudden do this with 10 options. And very quickly, if you do research for a week with 10 options, you will know, okay, now we need to do the same thing with 5 options, the 5 most loved option, and then you start like going down and going down. And at the end of the process, you get to 1, and typically the final version typically is a merge of multiple things, but it just enables you to explore way more bandwidth. But without bringing customers as part of the process, I agree with you that it will be very hard for the team to make an educated bet of what is probably the right place to go.
Okay, thank you. And do you see one? And we have one last question over here. Voila.
You're pretty good at throwing this.
I'm loving that.
Hey, congratulations, by the way, on going in the Miro family or joining that.
Thank you.
The question I have is more personal. What are your biggest challenges now that you've joined the family?
That's a great question. Being in a company of 40 people and joining a company of 2,000 is a bit of a culture shock, because things take naturally more, longer. Not because people are just, working different. It's just like the sheer size of a big organization create this kind of like inertia. That's the only difference. The team, we feel like we're part of the same company, the same team, just bigger. We have the same ambition. We like to build as deep solution as we were before. But the fact that you need to collaborate with a lot more people is, I think, the biggest difference.
All right, thanks.